Breaking news, the US court system has overturned Trump's tariff. So this instantly reverses all the price increases and inflation that not so fast. There's a lot to it actually. I'm gonna walk you through the last couple of months of tariff craziness, talk about how that's already impacted the camera and photography industry. I'm gonna tell you exactly what happened with the court system overruling that, and I'm gonna look into the future a little bit to see if we're actually done with this or if there's still more craziness ahead. First, I just wanna mention DxO. They're not even sponsoring this. If you hate Adobe's monthly fees, check out DxO Photo Lab, which is excellent software for organizing and editing your photos. You can pay once and never pay them again. Or if you're a dedicated Lightroom Classic user, but you want better RAW processing, well, Pure Raw from DxO actually does a better job. I proved this in side-by-side tests. Images end up significantly cleaner and you don't even have to leave Lightroom. Just a couple of clicks allows you to take advantage of that. And again, no monthly fees. So use our affiliate link here just so they know that you heard about them through us. And I have a coupon code for you, it's Tony. Now let's get to the tariffs. The impact on the camera industry has been just about every camera manufacturer has raised prices significantly. Blackmagic Design was building a factory in the United States and they pulled out of that factory because of the impacts of tariffs, but also reciprocal tariffs that other countries were going to implement. DJI is a Chinese company that produces the most popular drones and a lot of really popular cameras. And their most recent drone, they did not even launch it in the United States. Things have been really chaotic. Let me walk you through some of that chaos quickly. April 2nd, less than 2 months ago now, was what Trump declared as Liberation Day. He made tariffs for every country in the world with the baseline 10% tariffs for countries where we didn't have a trade deficit with them. A trade deficit is when you buy more from another country than they buy from you. Like I have a trade deficit with the Thai place down the street because I really like Thai food. People hated that. The stock market crashed. People pushed back against Trump, but he listened. And on April 9th, he walked a lot of that back. He dropped the entire country to a 10% tariff, but then increased Chinese tariffs to 145%. And this was only for 90 days. So we weren't allowed to get too comfortable with this. Now, that's good news for all your camera gear that's made in Japan or Vietnam or Thailand, because they only had a 10% tariff, and 10% tariffs aren't enough necessarily to drive price increases. But China had a 145% tariff. And guess what? An awful lot of the products you buy are made in China. And this meant stuff was suddenly unaffordable. I talked to multiple manufacturers who suddenly had to shut down their Chinese factories because they were manufacturing in China and their main market was the United States, and 145% increase would more than double the prices that consumers would be paying and simply make their products unaffordable to people. So it broke their entire business model, not just the camera industry, but many industries. Now, about a month later, Trump actually comes to an agreement with China and lowers their tariffs to 30%, which is a lot less than 145%, but 30% is still a whole lot. Now, about a week ago, on May 23rd, Trump suddenly declared that there were going to be 50% tariffs on everything from the European Union, like most of the European countries, effective on June 1st, just a week later. Now, as a Leica and Hasselblad shooter, that meant that I wasn't going to be able to buy any gear because that gear is already expensive, largely because it's made in Europe. Adding 50% tariffs to that is going to mean the entire business model breaks. Most people will not be able to afford it at all. But good news, just 2 days later, Trump rethought this and pushed it back more than a full month to July 9th, so they have some time to work out a better deal. Suddenly yesterday, May 28th, the judicial branch of the United States, our court system, which has checks and balances with the executive branch as granted to them by the Constitution, they overturned Trump's tariffs. So does that mean we're done? Pretty far from it, but we do need to understand how these tariffs were put into effect if you want to understand what your camera gear might cost in another couple of months. Trump has the power to declare tariffs on any country or the entire world based on the 1977 International Emergency Economics Power Act. As you can tell from the name, this is intended for emergencies. Trump's justification for there being an emergency was that the United States trade deficit with other countries was in really, really bad shape. Now, the court system didn't see it that way. They saw that our trade deficit has gradually increased over the course of more than 50 years. And no emergency comes about gradually over the course of 50 years, even if it is a situation that needs to be addressed. Here's what they had to say. The worldwide and retaliatory tariff orders exceed any authority granted to the president by IEEPA to regulate importation by means of tariffs. The trafficking tariffs fail because they do not deal with the threats set forth in those orders. The challenged tariff orders will be vacated and their operation permanently enjoined. I'll tell you why this might not actually have any impact on your prices. But first, I want to talk about those things that are exempted from this. Like a lot of Trump's tariffs against specific industries, like all those he's levied against the auto industry, those are under different laws, not the IEEP, but rather the Trade Expansion Act, Section 232. That gives him the ability to apply tariffs to specific industries. We're not dealing with that right now. Those are unrelated, but also so far have not impacted the camera industry. So the first reason why the court's overruling of the tariffs might not take effect and the tariffs might come back into effect soon is the White House is already appealing this. And they have that right because that's how the judicial branch works. No one judge has so much power. The law system is not black and white. This is likely to end up in the Supreme Court. And our 9 Supreme Court judges will decide this by majority vote. So Trump needs to get 5 out of 9 votes at least, and then his tariffs will come back into effect and he will have verified that he legally has the right to do this. And what are his odds of getting it appealed? Well, this is the makeup of the Supreme Court now. 6 of the judges were appointed by Republican presidents and 3 of the judges were appointed by Democratic presidents. So you could say that there are 6 conservative judges. Of those 6 judges appointed by Republican presidents, 3 of them were appointed by Trump himself. Good news for those of you hoping the tariffs are blocked. The judicial branch is supposed to be nonpartisan. Judges are not supposed to care who appointed them, nor are they supposed to be affiliated with a Democratic or Republican party. But it hasn't really been working that way. The Republican appointed conservative judges are indeed voting in favor of Trump's various efforts much of the time, but not all of the time. So in other words, for the tariffs to be effectively blocked, the Democrats would basically have to get 2 of the Republican appointed judges to vote alongside this court order. Or maybe we live in a world where they make a nonpartisan judgment and do what they think the laws and the Constitution support best. We'll just have to see. But this is probably going to happen pretty soon, like in a few months. It's definitely going to be put at the top of the pile. Now, there are some other ways that Trump could add tariffs besides using the IEEP. He also has at his disposal the Trade Expansion Act, Section 122. This is not quite as powerful as the IEEP. It does not give him just global unlimited power to set tariffs. It has a few limits, and that's why he hasn't used this particular law in the past. Like tariffs that he assigned would be capped at 15%. That's way less than China's current 30%, so that'd be a decrease for them, but the rest of the world could potentially go up 5%, and I wouldn't put it past Trump to set them at the maximum amount just to sort of spite the people who are pushing back and teach them maybe not to fight as hard as they have been. But it would also be limited for 150 days, so about 5 months. Now, that 150 days could just be time for Trump's legal team to get stuff in place while they file the appeal or look for a different avenue to set tariffs. Another law that could allow Trump to set tariffs is the Trade Expansion Act, Section 301. This requires an investigation and takes time. I bet this is going to be a plan B or C while they have the Section 122 tariffs put in place and they're working on the appeal. Likely, I think they're going to pursue each of these avenues. And of course, really the proper, most solid way for tariffs to be put into effect is for Congress to actually introduce and pass laws that would then be signed by Trump. Those would be much harder to overturn. And also, I think, more in line with the checks and balances that our Constitution has wanted. The people, the founding fathers of the United States came from a monarchy, and they didn't want one person to have so much power. So that's why we have a Congress, because we want multiple people debating things and working with their constituencies, the populations that they represent. And that's really how big changes are supposed to happen. Now, we all know Congress isn't that effective. And if Trump could pass a law through Congress like this, he would have, and it hasn't happened. But also, twice a year, we have to change our clocks for daylight savings time, even though the vast majority of Americans hate that. And I just use that example to show that passing laws through Congress isn't easy, even when something makes absolute total sense. So I do kind of understand why Trump wanted to simply take action without running things through Congress. But of course, the downside to this is some judge can just come in and throw your executive order out, and then you're left with nothing. So what does all this mean for the camera industry? Well, first, this back and forth, even going down to zero tariffs now, that's going to be really frustrating. It adds to even more price confusion. Can you imagine being DJI or Panasonic, who recently launched cameras, and trying to figure out what the price would be, especially if it's made in China, which both their products were? You don't know if tariffs are going to be 145%, 30%, or 0%, because those have all been true in the last month. I think we'll see more and more companies just leaving the US out of their plans, just planning not to ship stuff to us. And then if it works out okay, then maybe they'll ship some product to us. A lot of companies in the camera industry right now, they're supply constrained. If you haven't been able to buy something before Trump was in office, that means that product was supply constrained. Fuji cannot make enough of the popular X100 cameras. So why bother shipping any to the United States, where pricing is up and down? I do wonder if tariffs suddenly dropping to zero might halt some of the price increases that we're seeing. Like Nikon just announced a lot of price increases on all their Chinese products because of the tariffs, of course. Now, suddenly these tariffs seem to be at zero. Now, you might think that's good for Nikon because they have price increases without tariffs, and the rest of it is just going to go to their bottom line, meaning more profits. But generally, they would have set the prices higher if they could. The original prices were set to make their products competitive. So now that they're higher, their products are going to be less competitive, and they might end up selling enough less that their profits will indeed be impacted. And I think all of this confusion, the confusion around the tariffs, is going to cause a lot of companies to lose money over the next 3 to 6 months until maybe this settles out. I also think we might see a rush of Chinese goods being imported into the United States because there is going to be a quiet period where there are no tariffs, because it's going to take, I don't know how long, days or weeks or months, for Trump to find a different way to implement tariffs on Chinese goods especially. And I know every retailer is going to be ordering all the products they can, getting them through customs before the tariffs kick back in again. So we might have a sweet spot there, however short-lived, where you can buy a Mavic 4 Pro or a DJI Pocket 3 or a Fuji X100 that you haven't been able to get up until now. In the comments down below, let me know what you think. Do you think the tariffs are working out the way that we hope? Are they backfiring? Is this actually going to make more companies do manufacturing in the United States? I'd like to know what you think. And don't forget to check out DxO. They make photo processing software that you don't have to pay monthly for, that doesn't have generative AI, that produces better quality raw processing than Adobe's Lightroom can. So you can get a free trial. Go to stp.io/DxO to try it out completely free. If you love it, the coupon code Tony will get you a discount. Thanks.